important hearing that we're having examining the preservation of State Department federal records. As we know now, Hillary Clinton as Secretary of State for nearly 4 years, or roughly 4 years, helped create one of what is reported to be one of the biggest security breaches in the history of the State Department. It is an absolute mess. We have witnesses here that are vital to our understanding of the problem, how we got into this mess, and how we are potentially going to clean it up. Joining us will be Mr. Justin Cooper, a former employee of President Bill Clinton and the Clinton Foundation. Mr. Cooper purchased the first server used by Secretary Clinton and had it installed in the basement of her private residence in Chappaqua, New York. He also registered the email domain clintonemail.com in 2009, and the same day Secretary Clinton's confirmation hearings began in the United States Senate. Mr. Cooper has described his role in managing Secretary Clinton's private server as the, quote, customer service face, end quote. He explained to the FBI he helped Secretary Clinton set up her mobile devices, and when she finished with them, he would break them in half or destroy them with a hammer. Interesting, Mr. Cooper was never employed by the State Department while he managed the server she used to conduct the business of the government. When Mr. Cooper needed upgrading to the server for better service, he turned to Mr. Brian Pagliano. Mr. Pagliano had worked for Secretary Clinton's 2008 presidential campaign and was in the process of closing out the campaign's IT assets when Mr. Cooper called to discuss a new server for the Secretary. Because, as I said before, this is one of the biggest breaches of security in the history of the State Department. We have a duty and an obligation to investigate it. Now recognize the ranking member, Mr. Cummings, for his opening statement.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Today is our third emergency hearing about Secretary Clinton's emails in 4 business days. Third in 4 days. Emergency. I believe this committee is abusing taxpayer dollars and the authority of Congress in an astonishing onslaught of political attacks to damage Secretary Clinton's campaign for President of the United States of America. This is the first time in my 20 years in Congress that I personally witnessed the oversight power of this committee abused in such a transparently political manner to directly influence a presidential campaign. The point of today's hearing
related to Secretary Clinton's emails, including Platte River's provision of IT-related services to her. We have some concerns relative to data security. Platte has not enabled encryption at the local device. Given the sensitive, high-profile nature of the data which is alleged in press reports to potentially reside on the data device, it may be the target of a cyber attack from a multitude of highly sophisticated and capable entities or individuals. We believe such an event could place the unencrypted data itself at risk, as well as expose both data and Platte River systems to collateral damage. In its current state, and it goes on, the device and the data that is stored thereon, and it goes on, is more vulnerable to cyber attack than Datto believes is prudent under the circumstances. Mr. Thornton, given the vulnerabilities identified by Datto, are you aware of any hacks of PRN's systems?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer and assert my Fifth Amendment constitutional privilege.
I'd like to just ask you one other question that I can't imagine has any implications on any criminal culpability or anything else to the, just a simple question, yes or no, and if you'll answer this one, we'll cut you loose here. Were you interviewed by the FBI?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer and assert my Fifth Amendment constitutional privilege.
You can't answer the question about whether or not you were interviewed by the FBI?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline.
Mr. Cummings.
And, again, as a member of the bar for 40 years, I'm not going to participate in this. I just think that when we bring witnesses here and we berate them, when we could do it in executive session or whatever, I think it would be unethical for me to do that. So I have nothing.
Given that the witness has indicated he does not intend to answer any questions out of respect for his constitutional rights, we will now excuse Mr. Thornton from the table. We will recess for 2 minutes while the clerk is able to reset the table. Committee stands in recess.